The United Nations headquarters buzzed with tension on that historic morning. Delegates from every nation packed the General Assembly Hall, their faces a mix of wonder and concern. Through the glass ceiling, news helicopters hovered like anxious birds, broadcasting this moment to billions worldwide. Ambassador Tahoe's ship landed with surgical precision on the specially constructed platform outside the UN building. The metal doors hissed open, releasing a cloud of strange-smelling vapor. As he stepped out, the crowd gasped. At 12 feet tall, Tahoe had to duck to enter through the building's main doors, which suddenly seemed absurdly small. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the morning sunlight, sending rainbow reflections dancing across the walls. Each step he took made a soft clicking sound on the marble floor, his four legs moving in perfect harmony. The assembled humans craned their necks to look up at him, many taking involuntary steps backward. So Tahoe's translator device boomed, "These are Earth's finest representatives." He didn't try to hide his amusement, his upper eyes narrowing while his lower pair scanned the crowd. "I must say, the reports of your diminutive stature didn't prepare me for just how tiny you all are." Dr. Jai-yun, seated in the front row, felt her face grow hot. As Earth's chief scientist, she had prepared extensively for this meeting, studying the preliminary data about Tahoe's species. Nothing had mentioned this level of condescension. "Your civilization is quite the curiosity," Tahoe continued, pacing the stage. "Barely 1,000 years of recorded history, and you think you're ready for galactic membership." He laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes in a storm. "You haven't even colonized your own solar system properly." The UN Secretary General tried to maintain diplomacy. "Ambassador Tahoe, we understand our civilization might seem young by galactic standards, but—" "Young," Tahoe interrupted. "My personal garden has trees older than your oldest nations. Your technology is primitive at best. Those flying machines outside." He gestured to the helicopters. "We developed similar devices as children's toys." Dr. Jai-yun stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room fell silent. At 5 feet 4 inches, she barely reached Tahoe's waist, but her voice carried clearly. "Ambassador, with all due respect, you're judging us by your standards alone." Tahoe's upper eyes swiveled to focus on her. "And you are." "Dr. Jai-yun, Earth's chief scientist. While you mock our helicopters, did you notice they're perfectly adapted to our atmosphere? That they serve our needs efficiently? Size and age don't determine worth, Ambassador." Bold words from such a small creature. Tahoe's translator crackled with what seemed like laughter. "Your species can barely reach your own moon without extensive preparation. My people cross galaxies as easily as you cross streets." The tension in the room grew thick. Delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some angry, others embarrassed. But Dr. Jai-yun stood her ground. "Then perhaps," she said clearly, "you'd be willing to put your superiority to the test, since you're so confident about your advanced capabilities." Tahoe's crystalline form sparkled as he turned fully toward her. "A test? How? Amusing. You wish to compete with a civilization that was exploring space while your ancestors were discovering fire." "Exactly," Dr. Jai-yun replied, a small smile playing on her lips. "Unless, of course, you're afraid to prove your superiority against such primitive beings." The assembly hall erupted in murmurs. Tahoe's exoskeleton changed color slightly, shifting to a deeper blue. His 4 hands clenched and unclenched. "Very well," he finally said, his translator struggling to convey his tone. "Set your challenges, tiny human. Let us see what Earth's finest can do against a true advanced species. Though I warn you, embarrassing yourselves on a galactic stage might not be the first impression you wish to make." As the meeting adjourned in chaos, Dr. Jai-yun caught Tahoe's eye one last time. The giant ambassador might have thought he saw a glint of something dangerous in her smile, but surely such a primitive creature couldn't be planning anything significant. He would soon learn just how wrong he was about humanity's capabilities. #First Contact. A new chapter in human history. The United Nations headquarters buzzed with tension on that historic morning. Delegates from every nation packed the General Assembly Hall, their faces a mix of wonder and concern. Through the glass ceiling, news helicopters hovered like anxious birds, broadcasting this moment to billions worldwide. Ambassador Tahoe's ship landed with surgical precision on the specially constructed platform outside the UN building. The metal doors hissed open, releasing a cloud of strange-smelling vapor. As he stepped out, the crowd gasped. At 12 feet tall, Tahoe had to duck to enter through the building's main doors, which suddenly seemed absurdly small. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the morning sunlight, sending rainbow reflections dancing across the walls. Each step he took made a soft clicking sound on the marble floor, his 4 legs moving in perfect harmony. The assembled humans craned their necks to look up at him, many taking involuntary steps backward. "So," Tahoe's translator device boomed, "these are Earth's finest representatives." He didn't try to hide his amusement, his upper eyes narrowing while his lower pair scanned the crowd. "I must say, the reports of your diminutive stature didn't prepare me for just how tiny you all are." Dr. Jai-yun, seated in the front row, felt her face grow hot. As Earth's chief scientist, she had prepared extensively for this meeting, studying the preliminary data about Tahoe's species. Nothing had mentioned this level of condescension. "Your civilization is quite the curiosity," Tahoe continued, pacing the stage. "Barely 1,000 years of recorded history, and you think you're ready for galactic membership." He laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes in a storm. "You haven't even colonized your own solar system properly." The UN Secretary General tried to maintain diplomacy. "Ambassador Tahoe, we understand our civilization might seem young by galactic standards, but—" "Young," Tahoe interrupted. "My personal garden has trees older than your oldest nations. Your technology is primitive at best. Those flying machines outside." He gestured to the helicopters. "We developed similar devices as children's toys." Dr. Jai-yun stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room fell silent. At 5 feet 4 inches, she barely reached Tahoe's waist, but her voice carried clearly. "Ambassador, with all due respect, you're judging us by your standards alone." Tahoe's upper eyes swiveled to focus on her. "And you are?" "Dr. Jai-yun, Earth's chief scientist. While you mock our helicopters, did you notice they're perfectly adapted to our atmosphere? That they serve our needs efficiently? Size and age don't determine worth, Ambassador." Bold words from such a small creature. Tahoe's translator crackled with what seemed like laughter. "Your species can barely reach your own moon without extensive preparation. My people cross galaxies as easily as you cross streets." The tension in the room grew thick. Delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some angry, others embarrassed. But Dr. Jai-yun stood her ground. "Then perhaps," she said clearly, "you'd be willing to put your superiority to the test, since you're so confident about your advanced capabilities." Tahoe's crystalline form sparkled as he turned fully toward her. "A test? How amusing. You wish to compete with a civilization that was exploring space while your ancestors were discovering fire." "Exactly," Dr. Jai-yun replied, a small smile playing on her lips. "Unless, of course, you're afraid to prove your superiority against such primitive beings." The assembly hall erupted in murmurs. Tahoe's exoskeleton changed color slightly, shifting to a deeper blue. His 4 hands clenched and unclenched. "Very well," he finally said, his translator struggling to convey his tone. "Set your challenges, tiny human. Let us see what Earth's finest can do against a true advanced species. Though I warn you, embarrassing yourselves on a galactic stage might not be the first impression you wish to make." As the meeting adjourned in chaos, Dr. Jai-yun caught Tahoe's eye one last time. The giant ambassador might have thought he saw a glint of something dangerous in her smile, But surely, such a primitive creature couldn't be planning anything significant. He would soon learn just how wrong he was about humanity's capabilities. Hashtag the challenge. Humanity stakes its claim. The day after Ambassador Tahoe's controversial first contact, Captain Haynewell walked into the emergency UN session with a plan. The decorated military officer's footsteps echoed through the tense chamber as she approached the podium, facing both Earth's representatives and the towering alien diplomat. Ambassador Tahoe. Haynewell's voice rang clear and strong. You question our worth. Let's settle this with 3 trials. She stood straight-backed, her military bearing evident, despite being less than half Tahoe's height. Each challenge will test different aspects of civilization, innovation, military prowess, and crisis management. Tahoe's crystalline form shimmered with what seemed like amusement. You propose a competition between your primitive species and mine. His translator device barely captured the mockery in his tone. How entertaining. Director Sunma, the newly appointed competition overseer, stepped forward with a digital tablet. Her diplomatic experience showed as she calmly outlined the challenges. First challenge. Design and build an emergency shelter system within 48 hours. The system must protect against extreme weather and natural disasters. Tahoe waved one of his forehands dismissively. Child's play. We build entire cities in days. Second challenge. Sunmay continued, unfazed. A military exercise. Each side will field a small team in a controlled environment, competing to secure strategic objectives. Our warriors average 3 times your size. Tahoe scoffed. This grows more amusing. Final challenge. An unexpected crisis scenario. Neither side will know the details until the moment it begins. This tests real-time problem-solving and adaptation. The assembly hall buzzed with whispers as Sunmay laid out the rules. Each challenge would have clear victory conditions. Independent observers from neutral alien species would judge the results. The stakes. Earth's reputation in the galactic community. Captain Haynewell stepped forward again. If we win, you publicly acknowledge humanity's capabilities and support our petition for galactic membership. And when you lose, Tahoe's upper eyes narrowed. If we lose, we withdraw our membership petition for 50 Earth years. The room erupted in chaos. Delegates argued loudly, some supporting the challenge, others protesting the risk. Director Sunmay called for order while Tahoe watched with obvious entertainment. 50 years is nothing to my species, Tahoe said, his exoskeleton rippling with colors. But the humiliation of losing might teach you primitives your proper place. I accept these terms. Haynewell nodded to Sunmay, who brought out the formal agreement. As they worked through the details, Tahoe continued to make small, cutting remarks about human infrastructure, technology, and physical limitations. We'll need a suitable location for the military exercise, Sunmay noted, typing into her tablet. Somewhere that doesn't advantage either species. Perhaps somewhere with steps, Tahoe suggested with mock concern. Your kind seems to struggle with reaching higher places. Haynewell's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. We'll manage, Ambassador. Though I wonder, how well do your crystalline legs handle rough terrain? For just a moment, Tahoe's confident posture faltered. The next hour was spent finalizing details. Teams would be selected, resources allocated, and neutral observers contacted. Throughout the process, Sunmay maintained perfect composure, even as Tahoe made repeated jabs about the primitive nature of Earth's communication technology. As the session ended, Captain Haynewell approached Tahoe one last time. Ambassador, there's an old Earth saying, pride goes before a fall. Tahoe's translator crackled with laughter. How fortunate that my species is too tall to fall far. But as he watched the humans efficiently organizing their teams, a tiny flicker of uncertainty crossed his crystalline features. These creatures seemed unusually confident for such small beings. Still, he dismissed the thought. After all, what could these tiny humans possibly do to surprise him? The competition would begin tomorrow. The galaxy would be watching, and humanity was ready to prove that size wasn't everything. #engineering marvel. The first trial. The first challenge began at dawn on a vacant lot outside New York City. Two identical plots of land stood ready, each equipped with basic tools and access to local materials. The task seemed simple: build an emergency shelter system within 48 hours that could withstand extreme weather. Taiho's team arrived with containers full of advanced crystalline materials from their homeworld. "Observe," he announced, "how a truly advanced civilization builds." His workers began assembling gleaming structures that seemed to grow from the ground like crystal flowers. Dr. Jai-Yun's team took a different approach. They spent the first hour studying weather patterns, soil composition, and available resources. Local recycling centers provided materials while nearby construction sites donated basic supplies. Why waste time analyzing dirt? Taiho mocked as his structures rose higher. "Our buildings can withstand solar flares. Earth isn't your homeworld." Jai-Yun replied calmly, directing her team to lay foundations using recycled concrete mixed with local soil. By sunset, the difference between the two approaches became clear. Taiho's crystal structures sparkled beautifully, but began showing signs of stress. Earth's humidity caused unexpected reactions in the alien materials. Microfractures appeared where temperature changes were most extreme. Jai-Yun's team had built less flashy structures, but they incorporated natural ventilation systems and used recycled tires for flexible foundations. Their walls, made from compressed earth blocks and recycled plastics, absorbed and regulated heat efficiently. The night brought the first test, an artificial rainstorm. Taiho watched in horror as his crystal structures began to resonate with the thunder, their molecular structure increasingly unstable in Earth's atmosphere. "Impossible," he exclaimed as hairline cracks spread across his building's surfaces. Meanwhile, Jai-Yun's shelters stood firm. Their roofs, angled to collect rainwater, fed into filtration systems made from local sand and gravel. The collected water was stored for future use. "You see, Ambassador," Jai-Yun explained while checking her structures, "advanced doesn't always mean complex. We built these shelters to work with Earth's environment, not against it." The second day brought extreme heat. Taiho's remaining structures began to act like giant greenhouses, their crystalline walls magnifying the sun's rays instead of deflecting them. Inside, temperatures became dangerously high. The human shelters maintained comfortable temperatures through passive cooling systems. Air circulated through carefully designed channels, while recycled metal sheets reflected excess heat. As the 48-hour mark approached, the final test began: simulated earthquake conditions. Taiho's beautiful but rigid structures shattered spectacularly. The crystalline technology, so advanced on his homeworld, proved catastrophically unsuited to Earth's conditions. Jai-Yun's shelters swayed but held firm, their flexible foundations and reinforced walls absorbing the shock. The simple but effective design proved its worth, protecting its occupants while conserving resources. The neutral observers deliberated briefly before declaring humanity the winners of the first challenge. Taiho's upper eyes narrowed as he studied the human shelters more carefully. "How?" he demanded. "Our materials are centuries ahead of yours." "Sometimes," Jai-Yun responded, patting one of her shelter's walls, "the best solution isn't the most advanced one. We succeeded because we respected Earth's conditions and worked within them." As cleanup began, Taiho lingered near the human shelters, his crystalline form reflecting the setting sun. For the first time, doubt crept into his thoughts. Maybe these tiny humans understood something his people had forgotten: the power of adapting to one's environment rather than trying to overcome it. The military challenge would begin tomorrow, and Taiho wasn't feeling quite as confident as before. #military precision. The second trial. The military challenge took place in an abandoned industrial complex. Rain poured down, turning the ground muddy and reducing visibility. Each team had 5 members. Taiho's warriors stood impressive in their crystalline armor, while Colonel Yoongi's human squad looked tiny in their basic combat gear. The objective was simple: capture and hold 3 strategic points while eliminating opposing forces with simulation markers. A hit from these markers would temporarily disable combat suits and count as an elimination. "This will be quick," Taiho declared from the observation post. "Our warriors are superior in every way." Yoongi gathered his team for final instructions. "They're bigger, stronger, and better armed," he said quietly. "But we have something they don't: creativity." The simulation began. Taiho's warriors moved in perfect formation, their heavy footsteps echoing through the complex. They marched directly toward the first objective, confident in their superior firepower. But the humans were nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, markers splashed against one alien warrior from multiple angles. The shots came from small drainage pipes, spaces too tiny for Taiho's soldiers to use but perfect for humans. Before the alien team could respond, 2 of their members were eliminated. "Impossible." Taiho's translator crackled with anger. "Fight properly." "We are." Yoongi's voice came through the comm system. His team had split up, using their small size to move through maintenance tunnels and ventilation shafts. They emerged from unexpected places, struck quickly, and disappeared again. The alien warriors tried to adjust, but their rigid training worked against them. They couldn't fit through the smaller spaces, and their crystalline armor made them easy to spot in the rain. Meanwhile, the humans used the poor visibility to their advantage, their dark uniforms blending with the shadows. One human soldier rolled under massive machinery, firing markers from beneath. Another swung from overhead pipes, dropping simulation grenades. The alien warriors' perfect formation became their weakness. They couldn't react quickly enough to threats from all directions. Within an hour, all 3 strategic points were under human control. Taiho's warriors, despite their advanced technology and superior strength, had been completely outmaneuvered. "How?" Taiho demanded as Yoongi's team emerged from various hiding spots. "Our combat doctrine is perfected over centuries." "That's exactly the problem," Yoongi explained, cleaning mud from his gear. "Perfect doctrine becomes predictable. Humans adapt. We use whatever advantages we can find, even our small size." The neutral observers confirmed humanity's victory in the second challenge. Taiho watched in silence as his warriors tried to extract themselves from areas where their size had become a disadvantage. As the teams cleared the field, Yoongi approached Taiho. "Size isn't everything, Ambassador. Sometimes being small means finding paths others can't see." Taiho's crystalline form dulled slightly as he processed this second defeat. The final challenge, the crisis scenario, would begin tomorrow. And for the first time, the mighty ambassador felt genuinely worried about facing these resourceful tiny humans. #crisis management. The final test. The emergency alert blared through the UN command center. A massive asteroid, 2 kilometers wide, was hurtling toward the moon colony. Impact would occur in less than 6 hours, threatening the lives of 10,000 colonists. Engineer Minna and Taiho received the crisis briefing simultaneously. This was their final challenge: save the colony with the resources at hand. "Simple," Taiho declared, his crystalline form pulsing with confidence. "We'll use our planet-killer weapons. One shot will destroy the asteroid." Minna studied the data streams intently. That much firepower so close to the moon. The debris alone could devastate the colony. Taiho dismissed her concerns. "Better some damage than total destruction. We'll begin charging our weapons." But Minna had spotted something interesting. The asteroid's path took it near several abandoned mining sites. She quickly accessed the colony's inventory. They had leftover mining charges from lunar excavations. "Give me 2 hours, she announced. "I have a different solution." While Taiho's team prepared their massive weapon, Minna worked with the colony's mining teams. They planted charges at specific points along the abandoned sites, carefully calculating detonation timing. "This is foolish," Taiho protested. Those primitive explosives can't possibly affect an asteroid that size. We're not trying to destroy it, Minna explained, fingers flying over her control panel. We're going to redirect it. Her plan was elegant in its simplicity. The coordinated explosions would create gravitational disruptions, using the moon's own mass to help alter the asteroid's course. Each blast was precisely timed to nudge the massive rock into a new trajectory. With 3 hours remaining, Taiho's weapon faced technical problems. Earth's magnetic field interfered with its targeting systems, requiring complex recalibrations. Minna initiated her sequence. The first explosions rippled across the lunar surface, perfectly timed. The asteroid responded, its path shifting slightly. More detonations followed, each one contributing to the gradual course change. Impossible, Taiho whispered as his sensors confirmed the asteroid's new trajectory. It would now miss the moon by a safe margin, without any debris endangering the colony. The neutral observers confirmed humanity's third victory. Minna's solution had used minimal resources, caused no collateral damage, and saved both the colony and the moon's structural integrity. Sometimes, Minna told the stunned ambassador, the biggest problems don't need the biggest solutions. They just need the right ones. Taiho stared at the celebratory humans, his crystalline form dimmed with deep thought. These tiny beings had proven themselves far more capable than he'd imagined. Perhaps it was time to reconsider everything he thought he knew about them. #understanding. A change of heart. In the days following the 3 challenges, Taiho found himself studying humanity with new eyes. From his observation post at the UN headquarters, he watched as nations coordinated resources and shared information with impressive efficiency. Dr. Jai Yun invited him to tour various human facilities. Their first stop was a bustling research center where scientists from different countries worked together on climate solutions. Notice how we arrange our labs, Jai Yun pointed out. Everything is built to human scale, which forces us to be efficient with space. We can't waste resources like larger species might. Taiho watched as researchers shared tiny workstations, their movements precise and coordinated. Your size constraints. They force cooperation. Exactly, Jai Yun smiled. We learned early that working together multiplies our capabilities. One human might be small, but millions working together can move mountains. They visited a city construction site next. Taiho observed how humans turned their physical limitations into advantages, creating spaces that were both compact and functional. Every inch had a purpose. Every design choice reflected careful thought. Your species seems obsessed with optimization, he noted, watching workers coordinate complex machinery. We had to be, Jai Yun explained. We couldn't rely on brute force or size. Innovation became our survival strategy. The final stop was a space center, where teams prepared for new moon colony expansions. Taiho saw how human engineers had adapted their small size to create efficient space habitats. Your emergency shelter designs, he said thoughtfully. They weren't primitive at all, were they? They were perfectly adapted to your needs. Now you're understanding, Jai Yun nodded. Being small taught us to be smart. Every limitation became an opportunity for innovation. Taiho's crystalline form shifted colors as he processed this revelation. He thought about how his own species relied on their natural advantages, perhaps at the cost of developing other capabilities. Your military tactics, your crisis solutions, they all come from this same thinking. Yes, we learned to use everything available to us, to find creative solutions because we couldn't overpower our problems. As they watched a team of humans expertly maneuver a spacecraft component, Taiho finally spoke what had been bothering him. I was wrong about your species, he admitted. Physical size is a poor measure of civilization's worth. Jai Yun smiled. That's why the galactic community needs diversity, Ambassador. Every species brings unique perspectives and solutions. By day's end, Taiho's view of humanity had transformed completely. These tiny beings had shown him that true advancement came not from physical superiority, but from the ability to adapt, innovate, and work together. Tomorrow, he would need to make his final report to the Galactic Council, and for the first time in his career, he looked forward to admitting he had been wrong. #New Perspective. A Future United. The UN General Assembly Hall buzzed with anticipation on the day of the closing ceremony. Representatives from every nation gathered to hear Ambassador Taiho's final verdict on Earth's galactic membership bid. Taiho approached the podium, his crystalline form gleaming softly. The hall fell silent as his translator activated. "When I first arrived on Earth," he began, "I judged your species by their size. I saw your smaller stature as a sign of weakness. I was wrong." He turned to face Dr. Jai-yun and the other challenge participants. "These humans have taught me that greatness isn't measured in physical dimensions. Their emergency shelters adapted perfectly to Earth's conditions while my advanced materials failed. Their military squad used size to their advantage, turning what I thought was a weakness into strength. Their solution to the asteroid crisis showed wisdom my people had forgotten, that bigger isn't always better." The assembly listened intently as Taiho continued. "Humanity's true strength lies not in physical size, but in their ability to work together, to innovate, and to adapt. They turn limitations into advantages. They find elegant solutions where we would use brute force." He raised all four hands in a formal gesture. "As ambassador of the Galactic Council, I not only approve Earth's membership petition, I recommend them for immediate inclusion in the Advanced Sciences Committee." Gasps filled the hall. The Sciences Committee was one of the Council's most prestigious bodies. Earth's approach to problem-solving offers perspectives our galactic community desperately needs, Taiho explained. Their experience working within limitations has created innovations we never considered. He turned to address the human delegates directly. "My species believed our size and strength made us superior. You showed us that true advancement comes from innovation, cooperation, and adaptability. These qualities make you not just worthy of membership, but valuable teachers for all spacefaring races." Dr. Jai-yun stepped forward to sign the membership treaties as Taiho continued speaking. "From this day forward, I pledge to be Earth's strongest advocate in galactic politics. Your species has much to teach us about finding strength in apparent weakness." The ceremony concluded with Taiho performing a traditional gesture of respect, lowering himself to human height. "Thank you," he said simply, "for showing me a new way to measure greatness." As celebrations began, Taiho spoke quietly to Dr. Jai-yun. "My people have grown complacent, relying on size and strength. Perhaps it's time we learn to think smaller." Jai-yun smiled. "And perhaps together, we can help build a galactic community that values all perspectives, regardless of size." The day ended with Taiho sending his official report to the Galactic Council. In it, he recommended a complete review of how the Council evaluated developing civilizations. Size, he wrote, was perhaps the least important measure of a species' worth. Earth had gained not just membership, but a powerful friend in galactic politics. And Taiho had gained something even more valuable: wisdom.